this kind of shows a little bit of concern for me, or it's cause for concern initially. And I say it initially because we're going to dive into this a little bit. Everyone, welcome to the Hair Transplant channel. My name is Joe Tillman, and you're watching the official YouTube channel for hairtransplantmentor.com. If you're new to the channel and you don't know who I am, I'm currently the only hair transplant YouTuber that also has surgical and clinical experience, having worked for some of the world's greatest doctors since 2003. And just as a reminder, I am not a doctor, so this is not to be taken as actual medical advice. This is only my opinion based on being a hair transplant consultant since 2003. Right, so today we're doing another hair transplant consultation. This is hair transplant consultation, I think number 5, or is it 6? It might be 5. I don't know, it'll be down in the title and down in the description. And before we get into his case, I need to kind of point something out about how he filled out the form. And I'm not picking on him, because this is something that a lot of you do when you're sending in your consultation requests to different clinics. And what I'm talking about is detail. When you read the questions that you got to fill out on different hair transplant consultation forms, you should do your best to answer as fully and as comprehensively as possible, because you're getting a medical assessment here. And when you're getting a medical assessment, they can, the doctors can only go on what information that you give them. So you need to give them as much as you can. And just like with this case, and again, I'm not picking on the, this person that sent in this information, but I just think it's important. Aside from his name and his age, which is what I need to start with, I'm asking what the goals are for his hair transplant. And he's talking about fixing the front third. That's fine. Like that's a great baseline of information, but it'd be nice to know what he's talking about. Like, aggressive hairline? Does he want his teenage hairline back? Is he looking for something conservative, just enough to style? Is he looking for thick as fuck? I mean, I don't know. So at this point, I have to just start throwing in a bunch of assumptions based on averages over my 20-year career performing consultations. So let's just move forward. He says here, okay, so next question, are you taking medication for your hair loss? He says yes. Next question, if yes, which medications and for how long? This is another opportunity to give a lot of detail, but he doesn't. Finasteride, 1 milligram per day. All right, so that's awesome. He's on finasteride, but is it generic or is it name brand? I don't ask that, and I could probably be more specific with my questioning, but I did ask him for how long, and this is a really important question during a surgical assessment. And in this case, he doesn't say anything. He just says once a day. So, has he been taking it for a month? Has he been taking it for 10 years? I don't know. And that is a big piece of information that any doctor or any clinic would need to know if they're going to give a proper assessment. So again, I need to go on assumptions here. So in the future, anyone sending this in, please be specific and spill your guts. Like, let me know everything that you can about these different questions that I'm asking. And the next question, have you seen a reversal, maintaining, or no effect on your hair loss? And he does say maintaining, but again, because of the previous question, we don't know, we don't have any sort of point of reference as far as time goes. So we'll assume that it is maintaining moving forward. All right, so let's go through the photos. He sent in 7. We'll just run through those quickly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There you go. You got a real quick overview of what we're dealing with. Let's go back to the first image. We get a pretty good idea of the height of his hairline. You can see the frontal tuft. We tilt the head down, we can see a little bit more of what's going on, and you can see that temple recession, and it's very obvious what's going on here. He's got deep temple recession, but that's not all. Let's see the top image, and you can see the crown is also thinning. So the initial assessment is that this patient, being 38-year-old male, is presenting as a Norwood 3V, or vertex, which means that he doesn't just have the typical recession in the corners of a Norwood 3, but he also has the thinning in the crown, which denotes the V, the vertex portion of the classification. Now we're going to move on to the donor area, and looking at what we have to assume is his left angle based on what we see here. The donor looks pretty good. I don't see any sort of indications of retrograde alopecia, which I've talked about before in at least one previous consultation. I'll link to that down below in the description. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty solid. The temple point is pretty strong. No need to deal with that. And the areas behind the temple point down on the sideburn region, that looks pretty good as we move above the ears. And we're talking about all of this area because FUE can take hair from everywhere. It's looking pretty consistent. Now, I will say that I can see through this a little bit. You can see a little bit of scalp, but it's not a bad sign because his hair is kind of short. It's probably maybe a 3 guard at this point, but there's more to the donor area when we look at the other side, assuming this is the left side. This kind of shows a little bit of concern for me, or it's cause for concern initially. And I say it initially because we're going to dive into this a little bit. You can see a little bit into the scalp, and a lot of people, a lot of places, a lot of clinics, even doctors would look at this image and say, not a candidate, DUPA, diffused unpatterned alopecia, where he's thinning throughout the donor area. Not a good candidate because of also future potential loss that is down the road. But we're not sure about that because, you know, I've seen a lot of cases where patients have sent in photos or they've shown up in person and the hair on the patient isn't clean. In other words, they haven't washed it that day. And I think that might be what's going on here. And I say that because a lot of people, when their hair hasn't been washed on the day of a consultation, their hair will clump up. And a lot of you know what I'm talking about. You have this issue, and it's kind of like bedhead. So, and nothing against that. Like, a lot of people don't wash their hair every day. It's pretty common, actually. But when that happens and you're not brushing it, because it doesn't look like it's been brushed, then it'll clump. It's being pulled in different directions. It's kind of like a part line, a little miniature part line, and he's got a bunch of those going on to where you can see through to the scalp, but that's only because the hairs are diverging due to whatever reason. It's not brushed, it's not, you know, 100% clean. So I don't think that's really a problem. And when we look at the back, the occipital donor region, he's lifting up the hair. Thank you for that, good job. You can see that the density is about average. So I'm going to make an assumption here based on what I'm seeing is that the density across the board from left temple all the way to right temple and around the back through the occipital region, it's going to be pretty average, maybe slightly below, but not in a detrimental fashion. So I think that overall this patient is a fairly good candidate for surgical hair restoration. So what are we going to be dealing with? Well, he's not said anything about the back. He's only said in his consultation request that he's wanting to fix the front, the frontal third. So let's look at that. Back to the front, we got the temple recession, and you can see that forelock, that central region is still pretty strong. It is thinning a little bit, but I don't know if the medication is also maintaining this area. Again, we don't know how long he's been taking it and if it is actually maintaining. So a lot of people will take a patient at their word, you know, face value for what they're saying. But I know a lot of patients will say they've been taking it for 3 months and it's maintaining their hair, and they really have no idea because it's not maintaining their hair. It hasn't had enough time to maintain their hair. That's why you need at least 6 months, bare minimum, preferably a year, to know if it's actually working for you in that regard. So again, we're assuming that it's 6 months to a year, so good, it's holding, and we may or may not want to place hair in this region. Now, always remember that once you have your first surgery, it's first for a reason because there is going to be a second at some point. So a second surgery might be good for filling in the region just behind the front of that central hairline, that frontal forelock. Maybe thicken that up a little bit at some point. I don't think it's necessary now. So what are we going to do about the sides, the corners, which is the area of real needs? So I think that, again, more assumptions. If you're okay with something that's, we'll say, age appropriate, 38 years old for now and also for the future, as you become 48, 58, 68, what have you, I think a hairline design, a hairline shape that will fit you all through the future is key for this. And that means not going crazy with the graft count. I think something around 2,500 grafts, roughly 1,700-ish for each corner, you'll be good. I think that will establish a strong frontal hairline shape. It will frame your face. It will be age appropriate. But if we have a conservative hairline, something like this is not to denote any sort of density expectations. It's just the shape of the hairline that I think would be appropriate for you. Just one option. There are other options. But I put this together in Photoshop to give you an idea of what a conservative hairline would look like for you. And this will give you, at least 10 years off of your appearance. And yeah, if you want to get some sort of density like this, like it would take more grafts, but I think cases like this are best served with being conservative and being cautious, where you don't want to put too much in one session up front, because you could have a situation where it doesn't work out. So I think this is a fairly good representation of what you can expect. 2,500 grafts, it's a fairly strong session, but it won't get you super high density. It won't be thick as fuck, and that's fine, because you don't want that. Realistically, no one should have that, because you do have a finite donor supply, and you're going to need more in the future, especially if that crown decides to kick in and thin out even further down the line. So, hair fibers, Dermatch, Hairton, things like that, you can put in your scalp, in your hair, to thicken it to where you could have a really thick appearance, if that's your game, if that's something you like. But this will get you going. It'll be a great start, and I think will suit you quite well. Okay, so that's it. I hope this was helpful to all of you watching this, and to you, the patient. Thank you for sending in your consultation request. If you like this video, click that thumbs up, and if you're not a subscriber, be sure to subscribe and ring that bell for future notifications, because more videos are coming out soon. Thanks for watching. Peace.